This is Pod Populi, podcast for the people.
There's nothing worse than just staring at the screen like a pig staring at a wristwatch. I'm just like,
I will say, and I hope it's past now, I've lost power twice in the last 40 minutes because I think they're laying down the fiber optic cable that we've been asking for 5 years. I live in a very old neighborhood of Birmingham. So just fingers crossed that this hour will be good.
It's called the Tragedy Academy for a reason.
That's right.
It's baked in for mistakes.
I was like, I knew I needed to tell him something. Oh yeah, the power thing. Yeah, the power issue I'm having. Yes.
Yeah, no, hey, we've all been there. And welcome to the Tragedy Academy, a show created to bridge societal divides in a judgment-free zone using candor and humor. My name is Jay, and you hear Andrea Wilson Woods here to discuss becoming a legal guardian of her teenage sister, Adrienne, around 22 years old. Lost her to cancer 4 years later. He founded Blue Faery, the Adrienne Wilson Liver Cancer Association, through to turn personal tragedy into patient-centered advocacy and change, right? And the book is Better Off Bald. And
Correct.
You are a very eloquent writer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
I love your use of metaphors and the way that you just feel calm listening to your read.
Oh, thank you.
If that makes sense.
I don't think anyone's ever told me that before.
Yeah, I know. I felt like as I was reading, and I haven't finished the book yet, but as I was reading it, I was like, the way that you described things, you felt comfortable in how you were writing it. Not in the situation, but the way that you were describing it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, I wanted to bring people in. I wanted people to feel like they were right there with us in the room every step of the way.
It did feel like that. So you did your job.
Oh, good. Thank you.
So why don't you tell everybody who you are, where you're from, and kind of jump off from there?
Sure. So my name is Andrea Wilson Woods. I'm a speaker, an author, and a patient advocate who founded Blue Faery, the Adrienne Wilson Liver Cancer Association. I started the nonprofit in memory of my sister, Adrienne, whom I raised from the time she was 8 until she died from stage 4 liver cancer at the age of 15. So I raised her all through my 20s for almost 7 years. I got custody of her very unexpectedly when I was 22 years old. And she died just a few months after my 29th birthday. And that's why I started the organization. And then the book, Better Off Bald, A Life in 147 Days, is a medical memoir I wrote about that time in my life, both her cancer journey, which was quite short, but also the 7 years of that part of my life of raising her.
Well, that's a special time, especially for sisters and sisters that get the opportunity to maybe reach back and affect their internal generation through being someone like you who has taken on an adult role for somebody that could probably tell you shut up, right? I know my brother would if I was like, oh, I'm done. I'm like, I got to take care of it. But that's a special bond that you have there. And I'm glad that you were able to take the time to appreciate that in written form for everybody to see what it meant to know her before you get to that crossroads. Because a lot of people don't realize that that's not something that it's not on your bingo card. It's not something you're thinking about over cereal. It's not on any of those things. It is running into a wall. Literally at full speed, everything stops and you have a whole new perspective of everything you look at. So the fact that you took the time to honor her throughout that entire time frame, it resonates really well with the story. And I think it shows the exact impact of what it is that's going on.
Thank you so much, Jay.
So you're a young woman, 22 years old, and you've come to a crossroads where you have to take care of your younger sister.
Yes. I had more of a toolbox than you would think. So when my sister was born, it was just me and her and my mother. We have the same mother, different fathers, and her father died before she was born in a tragic car accident. And he was really the love of my mother's life, and it was devastating for her. So my mother decides to have his baby, and I get the baby sister I always wanted. But I very much took care of her from the time she was born all the way through high school until I left for college.
Mhm.
And I went to high school in Birmingham, but then I really wanted freedom because I didn't get to experience my teenage years like most people did because
Mm.
I was the babysitter, I was the nanny, I was the maid, I was the cook, I was the chauffeur once I got my driver's license. So I went to college in Southern California. I went to USC and I stayed in LA over 20 years. And my sister was 8 when she came out to visit me for what was supposed to be a 2-week Christmas vacation. And the day after Christmas, our mother called and said she didn't want to be a mother anymore. And at this point, our mother's life had really unraveled. She was a prescription drug addict, which I didn't really pick up on until my senior year of high school. I started to realize my mom was maybe not like other moms. And she was a nurse, so she had easy access to pills. But she was very high functioning. And then when I left, she just went through a series of things and moves and issues and a marriage where she just slowly unraveled. So ultimately, 4 months before that Christmas vacation, my mom called and said she lost her nursing license for shooting up morphine at work. She was offered rehab. It's very common for nurses and doctors to have addiction issues. She refused. And so her nursing license never got reinstated. And so she couldn't get work.
That's it. That's the end of a nurse's career in moments, just in one
All
decision.
she had to do was go to rehab. She'd just gone to rehab. But she, to this day, says she just does not have a problem. So,
Well, you know, addictions are ways to protect ourselves from what we know about ourselves, right? To keep us from looking clearly in the mirror. If your mirror has a rose-colored lens in between you and yourself, you're never going to take it at face value. You're going to live in that fantasy land. And I was a first responder. I've seen the life of people that get addicted to prescription painkillers. It's something that probably created a much broader toolbox than most people would assume, because when you see a parent that's in that kind of peril, you become the parent.
absolutely.
And you have to watch that unfold in front of you without the ability to provide any kind of firm guidance because you're still the child, right? In their eyes, they can pull that last card. Well, it doesn't matter. I'm your mother. And I'm your mother will outrank it every time. But what they don't see is you are right. Behind the scenes, you do become a second parent. That older child that has that 6 to 8 year gap ends up not being so much as an older sister or brother that it is a younger parent version of what needs to be taken care of. And you are right. I lived in this scenario. It's very similar. My mother had an addiction background. And my brother was younger than me, and we grew up, with food insecurities and things like that. And I can tell you, the way that you're speaking to it, it hits a chord, right? That is a completely different mindset. And I myself hear you when you say, I wanted to go to college. I wanted to go to college, and I wanted to be me and be free for a while, right?
I wanted to have my own life.
I went to the Army. I did the same thing.
Ah, wow.
Right? And I lost my GD mind. It was a whole new world. I was like, I'm free. I don't have to pay bills, or, I have to pay bills, but I have my own home. I go home to, I don't have responsibilities for other humans until I move up in ranks, and then they have to listen to me because they said so. So I understand that. And how did you get that time?
Yes, I moved to Southern California. I went to USC. I finished my undergrad in 3.5 years. I graduated a semester early, and I had the time of my life. I had a great
Thank
time
God.
in college. But I went home and I always visited my mother. But I mean, I was getting more and more worried about what was going on. It seemed like every time I went home to visit, things were slightly worse. And I actually thought I would get custody of my sister someday. I just thought she would be a lot older when it would happen. I did not expect it to happen when she was 8.
That's very difficult. I actually tried to get custody of my brother shortly after I joined the military. It didn't work out.
Wow.
Because you have to have, there's a lot of rules and guidelines, and you can do this and you can do that. Plus the military makes it a little more difficult because you can't be a quote unquote single parent, that kind of thing. But that said, you took it on full force.
Yeah, I did. I told our mother that if I took Adrienne then, that I wouldn't give her back. And I don't think she believed me. I really don't. Because about 8 months later, she called and she said, okay, things are better. Send her home. And things were not better. She never went to rehab. She never got her nursing license back, but she was doing private nursing for cash under the table.
Oh.
And these people did not know she no longer had a nursing license. And that was her version of, well, life's better, send her home. And I said no. So ultimately, we did go to court. And so I had sole physical custody, and then I got sole legal custody.
Well, I'm happy that you did. Right? Because
me too.
Because your sister got an opportunity to live a life that she wouldn't have in the other situation. So
absolutely.
Yeah, sometimes those powerful moments create diamonds, right? They're under all that pressure and you end up in that situation. And the next thing you know, when you look back, there's that beautiful, beautiful opportunity for two sisters to be able to thrive outside of what would have been a situation where they were both, living day to day in difficult situations with an addict. That's hard.
When she came to live with me, I was living with an addict. I was living with an abusive.
That's great.
Yes,
it's great how that works out.
Yeah, you learn how to take care of everybody else and be this enabler. And I was living with an abusive alcoholic, and I didn't really understand he was an alcoholic. I mean, it took once my sister came to live with us. I had almost no money, but I found a clinic that did prorated therapy, and this therapist was amazing. I only had 2 sessions. First one was just the intake. The second one, he said, do you not see the connection between your mother, your boyfriend in college? I had a very serious boyfriend in college who was an alcoholic and a stalker and had to get a restraining order against him. And he goes, and this current guy you're with. He's like, do you not see the connection? And he just laid it out for me. Like he was like not going to wait for me to figure it out. He said, you enable people because this is what you grew up with, and you're very good at taking care of people, but you don't know how to take care of yourself or even identify when someone's an addict. You don't even see it. And that was so eye-opening for me. And then not long after that, that alcoholic boyfriend came home in a drunken rage. He had totaled his truck. He tore the door off its frame because I had locked him out. And he thought I was calling the police, which of course I was not, because if I had, they would have taken my sister away. I was just calling my friend because I was scared. But that was the moment where I was like, okay, we're done because you're going to eventually really hurt me and you're going to hurt her. And so I ended that relationship.
It sounds like you made the correct decision.
Yes.
These situations that revolve around addictions and the many different masks that they can wear, you said something that resonated with me. You said, I didn't know he was an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
And I hear people all the time when they're redescribing things that they've been through, there's like a certain amount of onus that people take on for not recognizing the malfeasance or the mental disorder in somebody else's eyes or in their character, right? And how did I allow myself, or how couldn't I have seen this? I'm like, well, it's simple. We're layers of experiences over time, nothing more, nothing less. And if you don't have a meth head in your deck of cards or an alcoholic in your deck of cards, it's not going to show up. You don't know what to expect.
No, I disagree a little bit. I think I already had it in my deck of cards. So it was
did you have
normal for me.
alcoholism, or did you have
no drug abuse with my mother, not alcoholism, but I already had you know what I mean? Like I already had the taking care of the addict in my cards. So it was normal for me.
You were in the enabler role full time. But a lot of people will come to these crossroads and not know, or they'll beat themselves up after. How did I not know that they were drinking or that was an alcoholic, or I didn't know that they were actually abusing these pain pills or something like that? I'm like, because you've never been around an addict, or you've never been through this situation. Like, cut yourself some slack in these scenarios. Not necessarily you, because you said that you obviously had gone through the addiction route, but
I was immune to it. Do you know what I mean? Like
also a different relationship to be with a boyfriend versus a mother. Like the dynamic is really different in how you can approach the situation. That's for sure.
But I was still an enabler.
Oh, of course.
And I still was.
Well, let's take a quick break. now that we've gone through what it is to enable somebody, and we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back in just a moment, and we'll pick up where we left off. Welcome back. I am here, and we are discussing a charity that I'm excited to talk about, Blue Faery. Okay. So Blue Faery, can you tell us what it is, how it came to be, and how we can help?
Yes. So Blue Faery, the Adrienne Wilson Liver Cancer Association, is the nonprofit organization I started after my sister died. So it's in memory of her. And we spell fairy with an E instead of an I because that's the way she liked it. And it's called Blue Faery because her favorite color was blue. So much so that when she was diagnosed with cancer, her hair was blue at the time. I wouldn't let her dye her hair until she was 14. I was a very strict parent, but once she hit 14, every color of the rainbow we went through.
Love it.
Yes. So blue was her favorite color. She loved fairies. And the summer she was sick and fighting cancer, she actually bought these blue butterfly wings. And we started calling her our Blue Faery. So that's how the name of the organization came about. And our mission is to prevent, treat, and cure primary liver cancer, specifically hepatocellular carcinoma, also known as HCC, through research, education, and advocacy. So we're the only nonprofit in the U.S. solely dedicated to fighting this very specific and the most common type of liver cancer.
I want to take you back.
Yeah,
All
go ahead.
So you've started this foundation, but there was a day that you had to go in and see your sister and see a doctor and discuss what was going on and what her pain was and why her abdomen felt that way. And you were missing the gym and, you were there talking. What is that like going from regular day to crisis?
Well, I don't think you know until you've been through it, but for us, our lives changed in 6 hours. For some people, it's a second, right? For us, it was 6 hours. I walked in, came home from work on Wednesday, May 16th, 2001, to find Adrienne lying on the living room floor, curled up in a fetal position, clutching her right side, saying she couldn't breathe. Normally, when I walked in, she was at the kitchen table doing her homework because that was a rule in our house. So to see her like that and to see her crying. You're a mean
big sister. Ugh.
Yeah, I was a very strict parent. I was. But to see her crying too, this was a kid who just did not cry. So we went to her pediatrician. He didn't like what he saw. He sent us to the local ER. There's only one hospital in Burbank. And she had been to Coachella just a few weeks before with my boyfriend, different from the alcoholic one. This was the good one, who was a musician, and they went together to Coachella. And he had been complaining about his ribs being bruised from being pressed up against the metal. So when she told the doctors that story, they thought, oh, okay, well, there might be internal bleeding. We're very concerned. We're going to do a CAT scan. But that's what they were thinking. And so we're waiting. So from the time I came home, it was approximately 6 hours to the time when the ER doctor came back in and told us the results of the CAT scan. And this doctor just wouldn't look at her, which I knew was really bad. He would not make eye contact with her. He only looked at me. And he said, she has tumors in her liver and lungs. We are not equipped to handle the situation because they didn't take pediatric patients at this hospital. We've arranged for a transfer to Children's Hospital Los Angeles, and the ambulance will be here shortly. I mean, it was like that. It was so fast. And that was the first day of her cancer journey, for lack of a better word. I know a lot of people don't like that word, but for lack of a better word. And that was day one. And she did not go back to school in person, and I did not go back to work.
Life changes in an instant. And I think that we have to remember that there is no yesterday. There is no tomorrow. It is always now.
Yep.
We have to remain agile. We have to remain cognizant that we don't get extra moments. We only get to live in this one. And when it comes time to hit a scenario like that, it's a special person that is born of addiction or out of parents or households that have that scenario. They become lie detectors. They become situational predictors. They know what's going on months in advance. They know what you're going to say. They don't even like your long story, right? Because they've already plugged in everything. But now you're sitting there and you are her person.
Yeah.
Right? And she couldn't
my
ask
person.
for a better scenario than that. You want the one that's been through trials and tribulations to be the one reading the face of a doctor, because doctors are doctors and their empathy's taken away from them. They're not allowed to cry. Right?
Yeah.
Which is horrifying, to have the person that's providing you with the most important part of your health or recovery or opportunity not be able to bond with you. It's pretty sad, right? But that's why someone like you being in her life is so important. Because when you're sitting in the room, you're not just holding her hand, you're also a filter for all these people. And you're doing it at such a young age, even though it's still older, you're all older, but still nobody expects to be in that situation. Yeah. So tell me, she's been diagnosed and you're not back to work. We find purpose and passion born of pain, right? I like to always think that there's an opportunity at each one of those crossroads, and some people take that opportunity, and I think that's what you did. Your purpose was to take care of her. But the passion has become something different, right? What are you doing now with that passion?
Well, I started the nonprofit because I was looking for a way to channel my grief. If a nonprofit for liver cancer had existed, I would have just volunteered. I mean, I kind of joke, there's a great Lily Tomlin quote, or at least it's attributed to her, where she said, "I thought somebody should do something about that. And then I realized that somebody was me." And that's what ended up happening. I didn't, it was never my plan when I grew up to start a nonprofit. It was never my goal. I wanted to volunteer. I went to the largest liver disease organization in the U.S. at the time, and they wanted nothing to do with liver cancer. And I had some really incredible skills. I had marketing, writing, and teaching skills, and they wanted nothing to do with that. And so I did a lot of research. There wasn't a single other organization in the U.S. doing anything about it. And that's why I founded Blue Faery, because for me, it was a way to channel my grief and to help others. Because when my sister was diagnosed, there was nothing available. There was absolutely nothing. There wasn't even that much information on NCI's website at the time. The surgeon who did her biopsy, they gave me all these one sheets about her chemo. And I was like, okay, that's the treatment. I want to learn about the disease. Let's start there. And he said, none of that exists. And so the surgeon made me copies from his medical textbooks, brings me just the ream of paper. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm educated. I can't even understand this. This is crazy. I bought a Gray's Anatomy, which I still have, and a medical dictionary that's 2 inches thick, which I still have. And I went through and started sort of really not transcribing, what's the word, translating from this medical mumbo jumbo to layman's terms. And I was like, okay, now I get it. Now I understand what's going on. So that's one of the big things we do is patient education.
And I think that's a beautiful thing. And I love getting lost in things that I'm passionate about, whether it's for good, bad, or indifferent. When I find myself in there making connections, it gives me more purpose, more passion with understanding. That's to think that you sat down now in such a short amount of time, everything has changed, that you wouldn't receive a stack of books. Now you can look things up, go through it. And
so different.
But in such a short amount of time, like it wasn't like it was 100 years ago. It was like literally like 15, 20 years back. You wouldn't have been doing it the same way. Right. So I'm curious because it bothers me to think that there's not care for people that are in this scenario, or at least not a more robust system for diagnostics and, treatment and things like that. And I can't help but think that it might be something that's getting overshadowed by the primary problem that people have with their livers in America? Generally something tied to alcoholism or some other disease that I can't imagine that liver kind of gets overshadowed in that scenario for the typical diagnoses that could cause situations like your sister's. Is that something that maybe you crossed?
Well, most primary liver cancer is because there's underlying liver disease.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on what part of the world you're in, it's chronic hepatitis B, it's hepatitis C. Hepatitis B has a vaccine. Hepatitis C has curative drugs now that are on the market that were not on the market 20 years ago. And yes, many people do have alcoholism. In fact, that was the only connection that I knew of to liver cancer when my sister was
If I
diagnosed.
said you had lung cancer, you would probably think cigarettes.
Exactly. And that was the only thing I knew. Although you'd be surprised how many people I meet who have cirrhosis from alcoholism who did not know they were putting themselves at risk for cancer. So you'd be surprised. But also now there's been a big shift in Western countries, including the US, where the most common cause of liver cancer was hepatitis C, especially the baby boomer generation. But once those curative drugs came to the market, and once there were more of them and more competition, the price came down, more and more people were getting screened for hepatitis C and getting the curative drugs, and which cleared them. And so typically they would no longer be at risk for liver cancer. Now, one of the most common causes is fatty liver. It's directly linked to obesity.
Diet.
Nobody likes to talk about it because it's not an easy fix. Even doctors don't like to talk about it. Hepatologists will, of course, because they're liver specialists, but that is now one of the most common causes. Now, that doesn't mean everyone with fatty liver will get liver cancer, but if you have fatty liver, your chances of getting liver cancer have just, grown exponentially.
Yeah, it's funny. When you travel the world and you look at obesity and you see people in, say, Europe, not as obese as you would see them in America, there's been a lot of speculation that it comes down to how our foods are processed and created.
Oh, that's part of it, for sure.
And the addictive qualities that fall within them that create cycles of what people believe are actually healthy cycles that are still creating fatty livers and other issues related to diet. Just because it simply says, whole or organic on the outside.
I remember the fat-free cookies.
Right.
Like, I remember the fat-free trend
cookies.
in the 80s and 90s, and they were full of sugar. Sugar.
So here's my problem. How are they full of sugar and taste like shit at the same time?
I know.
like what's the only thing they did was make it taste bad. They didn't change the efficacy of it. So the fact that you've gone through all these medical books, you're looking at the scenario, you are becoming educated in your sister's condition and how it's impacted. And I think it's a great moment to tell everybody that it's not bad to use Google for your medical conditions. It's bad to assume you know everything or to get emotional as you read it. But everybody should know
or to think it applies to you.
Right. Dude, I can Google a hangnail and get HIV. Right? It's not far between cancer and a sore throat on Google, especially if you're a hypochondriac like me, right?
Well, so I think it does depend on the personality, because there are people who are like, don't doctor Google. No doctors like it, period, but don't doctor Google. And then there are people that are like, thank God I Googled because I found your organization.
Bingo.
So,
it's not just organization, right? Nobody's a better advocate for you than you. You know how you feel, regardless of what anybody else says in the room. If you're not confident enough and you can be talked out of your medical condition, there's a problem, right? Yeah. Sit there, advocate for yourself, and, give them the chance to understand. Don't try to prove them wrong. Right?
Most people don't know how to advocate for themselves. That's something that I've learned over the last 20 years, is that most people are not natural advocates.
We didn't go to the
for
hospital.
their health or otherwise.
I didn't go to the doctor. My wife sets up doctor's appointments for me like a vet appointment for the dog. I'm so weird that I don't like it. Like she's like, you have a physical coming up. I'm like, a physical? I'm like, I don't want to go. I'm immediately terrified. I'm like, oh, I'm going to die. Doctors, I catastrophize everything because I didn't go to the doctor as a kid. Like if you went to the doctor, it was the end of the world, right? Because that meant that everybody was going to have to spend money on you and you just screwed up everybody's life and everything in between. So I don't do it. I don't go to the doctor, but she sets it up. And now I'm finding more and more that it is better to be proactive in your healthcare, right?
Much better to be proactive. You have to be proactive. In fact, I'll tell you a funny story that I don't think I've ever told on any other podcast. So my now husband, we've been together almost 10 years, but we just got married a few months ago.
Congratulations.
He's older than me. Thank you. And yeah, he comes from pretty much a very healthy family, especially his mom's side, and never went to the doctor unless he, hurt his arm or something, broke a bone. You know what I mean? Like he didn't go to the doctor.
Stitches.
And I was like, you are over 55. You need a colonoscopy. Like it is time. I've already had 2, but I know I have issues. So, but I was like, you need a colonoscopy. And so it was kind of like one of the running jokes was like, I am not going to marry you until you get a colonoscopy. Okay. Just do it for me.
Worst.
Yeah. Don't do it. I'm not going to do it. And he did.
Worst vows ever.
I know, right? But he did. He got a colonoscopy. He actually got it. I think it's been like almost 2 years ago now. He got it and got a clean bill of health. The doctor was like, actually, you don't need one again for 10 years. And I was like, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're so like my wife. She's like, I don't give a rat's ass. You're going to get it. She will tell me over and over again. She'll schedule it. I'll think I got out of it. Like I'm not going to have to go to whatever. And then my calendar just goes blink. You have Dr. So-and-so. I'm like, no.
Well, colonoscopy, you got to plan for it.
You're going to go get roto-rooter. I'm like, crap,
yeah.
I don't want to do this. But you're not wrong. You have to take care of yourself. I have an 8-month-old son. So now I've got to stop eating nachos off my stomach and stuff like that. I've got to be a grown man again and run around and be able to, squat, jump, play, things like that, And my point being, you only get one you, right? So you should take care of yourself at least to the degree that you believe in what it is that you're advocating and know what it is that you're going through so that you can help your doctor, right? Not necessarily educate them, but help them. Be a good advocate. So get yourself a ream of paper and start reading through it, right? So did you come to junctures where you found that the information that you had studied gave you an opportunity to help in her care?
Well, yeah, because one of the strange things was at that time, the typical liver cancer patient, if you looked in the literature, was a non-North American male over the age of 50. And here was a otherwise very healthy 15-year-old Caucasian female who had never been outside the continental
I've never
US.
heard of this in my life.
Yeah. And the doctors were so stunned by what they saw in her biopsy that they came back and they immediately told me while she was still in recovery that they were going to test her for hepatitis. And all I knew of hepatitis was hepatitis A because there had been this hepatitis A outbreak in the Los Angeles Unified School District. And hepatitis A is directly related to just food and water. That's it.
Is that what it is? I just know
that's what hepatitis A is.
Every comedian makes hepatitis jokes. Like it's just a thing. So there's so many of them. Yeah, I'm like A, B, C, D. I don't know how many there are now, and I don't even know which one goes with which.
Right. Well, they said they were going to test her for hepatitis B and C, and I said, okay, do what you have to do, but I didn't understand what that meant. And that weekend, when I was going through the literature and reading the dictionary and doing my translation, I was like, oh my gosh, that's why they tested her, because chronic hepatitis B and hepatitis C are underlying causes for liver cancer. Again, doesn't mean if you have either one of those, you will get liver cancer. It just puts you at a higher risk. Well, my sister had both. And based on her age, the year she was born, our mother's drug use, that they concluded that she got both hepatitis B and C from our mother during childbirth, which is called vertical transmission, just some medical gobbledygook.
Damn.
Because hepatitis B is transferred through bodily fluids, so it's actually a lot easier to get hepatitis B, and hepatitis C is through blood. So it was really shocking. So she was living her whole life with these 2 viruses in her liver that were destroying her liver.
That's very, very sad. And the liver is something like you have to stay on top of it because the liver actually has the ability to regenerate itself. Like if there was some organ that you wanted to intervene with, that's the one. Right?
It's the only internal organ that can regenerate.
Yeah. Yep. So you got to stay on, check that one because at least they can lob a corner off and keep you going. Right?
Yeah,
so,
it grows back.
Exactly.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. Like a lizard's tail. So I need to just take a chunk off of mine now and have it refrigerated and hold for later. Can you do that? That's,
no,
you know
doesn't
what?
work like that.
We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in a moment and we'll see if we can grow back a lizard's tail maybe. I don't know.
I had an English Mastiff for 10.5 years.
They're amazing, right? They're human.
Yeah.
Like they're the next rung between dog and human, right? They're that close. They sit like people. They act like people. They pout. They do all the human characteristics.
Yeah. Yeah. He died a while ago. Now I have a rug. She's half purebred pug and half purebred Rottweiler. So she's quite an interesting dog.
I was about to say, that's like, what's her snoot look like?
It looks like a Rottie. It's not mushed in at all. But she's got pug coloring and she was the runt of the litter. So she's 44 pounds. But she's like, a linebacker. She's super muscular.
44.
And she's very protective like a Rottie. And so
my wife gets mad at me because I make stupid jokes all the time. And one of the stupid jokes that I make, like we go to like the farmer's market or something and we're walking around with our bull mastiff. There's always those people that are like dog experts and then they come over and talk to you about your dog and how your, this leash is this. And then they do all this stuff. And they're like, so your dog is, and I'm like, it's a giant pug. And then I'll stand there and because they're like, oh, I thought it was no, it's a giant pug. You didn't know about this?
And I would explain. I know this is going to get cut out, but the reason, it doesn't make any sense. The reason I wanted an English Mastiff, or actually the reason I wanted some pug blend or breed was because pugs are the smallest dogs derived from English Mastiffs. And once I had my amazing Winston, I was never going to get another English Mastiff. There's no way. He was perfect. He was a most amazing dog. And you have to cut this out because it doesn't make any sense. But I saw an ad.
You don't have to cut it out. See, that's what these conversations are. We don't know you. And
this does not relate to the topic.
Don't worry about it. It's the Tragedy Academy. They are used to me. Okay. We're talking about Winston and Riley. Right? Yeah. We're coming out of break. We're going to get right back on track. Don't worry.
Okay.
Was Winston there for you during all of this?
I got Winston after Adrienne died, and he was amazing. Yeah, he really helped me with my grief all through my 30s.
Everything's connected, right?
Yeah.
I love my dog. My dog, I honestly believe, gave me the leg up to be able to start meditating, to be able to start introspection, just because she was so calm and would spend time with me. And if I pet her, I put my hand on her, I started to learn the now. I started to learn that I was utilizing my brain for things that weren't taking place, which allowed me to start taking steps towards feeling better, right? So we're talking about dogs, but we're also describing, a member of our family. We don't deserve dogs. They're the first creature that saw we were mentally ill and they could capitalize on it by laying there, right? All the other creatures just stay at a distance. The dog's like, well, if you just let them pet you, right? It'll give you food and all this other stuff, right? So we don't deserve them. That said, I think now is a good time to probably talk about where we're going from here. What do you see for Blue Faery? Where can people find the book? And we'll kind of wrap up from there.
Sure. So the future is bright for Blue Faery. We've been expanding and growing the team and our programs, all of which are free for HCC patients and families. So you can go to bluefairy.org to support our work, which we really, really appreciate. And The book, Better Off Bald, Life in 147 Days, you can find wherever books are sold, and it's also available on Audible. So Amazon is, I think, the place where everybody buys books
on
now.
all of them. It's Kindle,
on all of them.
Audible. I bought it myself. So, because I had to make the decision, I was like, do I want the audio version? I'm not an audiobook guy. I'm a read it myself guy, but I think I'm going to start trying it. So I got both.
I'm glad you did, because I waited to do the audiobook until I could find a narrator for my sister.
I'm a voice artist, so I totally understand that. You do have to write voice behind that.
I found the right voice. So someone else does all of my sister's lines in the book, and it's really cool.
I love when writers do that rather than just like the straight James Earl Jones for 3 hours. Right? I don't want that. I could, so before we go, yes. I've been ending a lot of shows talking about something in particular, and we're up against a wall, but I want to see if I can squeeze it in.
Okay.
And that is the future of care, right? You started out saying that you had to look through this giant ream of paper in order to even understand what's going on. I'm an advocate for utopia, not dystopia, right? And I think that AI is here. I think AI is for a reason, and I think that AI can help us tremendously, especially in these diagnostics or the misunderstandings that we have for lesser known diseases or lesser studied diseases, right? Have you found or seen anything in your work that there are advantages coming from this new arrival of artificial intelligence and technology in this area?
I don't think you asked this on the show I listened to, but I'm happy to answer it. I think in medicine, where you're going to see, where you already see AI and you're seeing more of it, is in radiology. So, and being able to, imaging, and being able to read the scans better, because it's so subjective to some degree. I mean, it really is. There was an incident with my sister during her 3rd round of chemotherapy where they saw something on a scan, or thought they did, and the gastroenterologist and the medical oncologist and the radiologist, all 3 disagreed and got into an argument in her room in front of her. And turned around and just said, "You're the parent, you decide what to do," and put it completely in my hands. And I'm like, what? And thankfully I thought, well, the radiologist, that's his job. He goes through it every single day. And also he was like, I really don't want to give her anything else. Let's just hold on a day or two and see. Whereas the other 2 doctors just wanted to pummel her with more drugs. Turned out he was right. It was just a shadow. There was nothing there. She was good. It was the right decision. But it was a really hard decision as a parent to make who didn't have that kind of knowledge. So that's where AI is definitely making
pattern recognition is going to be amazing. Yes. The genome breakdowns and the looking at DNA, and then having that as a lens to view the body through ahead of time is going to be miraculous, right?
Well, and genetic profiling. There's already companies that exist, but they're not accessible unless you have a lot of money. But as AI becomes more prolific, in a perfect world, let's say you get diagnosed with cancer, you would go in and you would get your genetic profile for your cancer. And based on the genetic profile, they would be able to look at all the therapies that are currently available before you take a single drug, be able to tell you if it's even going to help you based on your genetics.
And it's coming at breakneck speed.
It is. But immunotherapy, for example, only works about 20% of the time.
My mom has had lung cancer for 8 years.
Wow.
And she still smokes.
Oh my goodness.
Chemo is great these days. So,
oh my goodness.
So yeah, you see what I mean? Like it's the technology is there. I asked her, I'm like, I don't even understand how this is happening now. Like, but that's to your point. There are so many advancements now, and man, the ability to do that human genetic screening ahead of time, you could see, what is going to be, right? Yeah. And that's what you want to find, right? You don't want to find cancer. You want to find what was going to become cancer.
I always say, watch the Minority Report.
I love that. Love that movie.
It's about crime, right? Predicting crime, but the same idea is coming up with predicting health, But at the end of the day, AI experts, at the end of the day, it's still up to you, the person, or the person you choose, because sometimes the patient just needs to focus on getting well to be an advocate for yourself. You have to be an advocate for your health. And I'm going through something with a family member right now that's just devastating that I won't talk about on the air, but he's completely given up all agency in his health. And it's so hard to watch. It's so hard to realize that there's nothing I can do, despite my connections, despite my expertise, because this person is not willing to help himself.
That's hard. It's really hard to watch somebody give up.
Yeah, I wouldn't say give up so much as give in to what his spouse wants. So.
Oh no! So this is a real scenario where there's.
Oh yeah, this is a personal thing going on in my life right now. That's been very challenging.
I've found, because I not that I'm in your situation, but I've been witnessing a lot of things in my family as of late, and one of the things that I've found when I can't directly interfere, but do have such a strong feeling about it, is just sit there. I'll just sit there and not say a word, but be as close to that person as I can. And when the moment arrives, then I'll do what I'm supposed to do. And if it never arrives, I did the right thing because I was there for them in every other way.
I'm not allowed to physically be there. So
physically, mentally, in the heart, however it is, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the best we can do. We can be a lighthouse, right? At the end of the day, people look to us for guidance in our day-to-day, right? Everybody looks to each other, to their left and right, to see what those are doing beside them. So why not be the best you can be, right? And I think that you're setting an example for your sister. I mean, at the end of the day, she didn't get the opportunity to live these years, right?
I think she set an example for me.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt that. Yeah. I wouldn't doubt that for a second. The strength that comes from somebody that has that survivor in them, and to fight against something that the hell she didn't even understand from the way you described it, that's got to be something that we could only learn from.
Yeah.
Right. If you could talk to her now, if you could reach back and have, just one last small conversation, what would you tell her?
Talk to her today or talk to her back then? Because there's a big difference.
Today.
I would say that I'm sorry we ever did chemotherapy. I'm sorry. I thought I asked all the right questions, and I didn't. And things have really changed for the better. There are actual treatments now for advanced liver cancer, palliative, but so not curative. But that's what I would say to her.
That's strong. That's powerful. Has that been weighing on you for a long time? That'd have to.
Yes and no. I mean, I know intellectually, I know I did the absolute best I could in the moment. I got all the help I could possibly get. I had, a friend of a friend who is a scientific expert who helped me with a second opinion. I mean, I did the best I could, but does it bother me? Yes, because there is no indication that doing that chemotherapy extended her life whatsoever. And all it did, and that chemotherapy, by the way, none of it, which was specific for liver cancer, was highly toxic. And all it did was make her weaker and sicker and unhappy.
We're at a crossroads now where we're utilizing a system that was made to kill you and cancer at the same time, and the winner gets to live long, it gets to move on. And we don't have to do that anymore, right? It was a limited time offer where we were trying to do it that way, but I think that you're right. There are much better avenues now. We understand the human body and the mind interactions and the way that different medications can support you, and just healthy life at the same time that you're going through it, because we're talking about a regenerative organ, right?
Right.
At the end of the day, there are a lot of families that do face that crossroads where we're like, do I do this? Because it is designed to break me down at the same time as the cancer. Is it worth it? Right. So you're bringing
you need
up a
doctors
great
to be
point.
honest. You need doctors.
I really do.
Yeah. And well, you have to be ready for the honesty, right? But you really have to set the stage for your doctor and say, if you want to know, what is the goal here? What is the goal? Is the goal only to give me like 3 more weeks? The first drug approved for advanced liver cancer literally extended survival by 3 weeks. And
I don't want that, because it kills the F out of you on the way too.
Exactly. So that's what and that's what we encourage with everybody who comes into our community, is to ask those kinds of questions and to decide for yourself what's more important to you. Like, what do you want? What do you want your life to look like? Everybody makes different decisions, but just to have that knowledge to ask those questions.
Quality of life is important.
Oh my God. It's everything.
It is everything. If you give me 3 years happy and not under chemotherapy versus 5 with it, that doesn't make any damn sense, right? Because what do I'm going to spend 23 hours a day looking at the back of my eyelids and then puking the other hour? What the hell is that good? When I could have spent time honoring the fact that I'm here and that I have a chance to experience things for a bit longer, love, family, friendships, all the things that we take for granted. I do know that anybody that I've talked to that has crossed that bridge of cancer, life has a completely different meaning from that day forward on what's important and what's not. And I think that also applies to survivors of family members of survivors. Right? We stop looking at the material things. We stop looking at the cars. We stop looking at the big buildings and houses, and we start looking at the time that we have with the people around us, right? Because that's the true gift that we're given. And when we do recognize our passion or our purpose, it is up to us. The onus is in us in that moment to become that person and be ourselves as hard as we can so that we can affect change for other people. And I think that's what you're doing. And I think that's what your sister would say to you, is that I love you for what you're doing and I appreciate you for what you're doing, and that you were there for her the whole time. Right? Yeah. And I know I'm not her. I just think that that's something you should know.
Thank you.
You are a lighthouse, and I appreciate you. And for those of you listening, please check out the organization. Donate money. We'll put in a donation today, by end of day, from the Tragedy Academy as well.
Thank you.
If there's anything that we can do, any advocacy, please reach out to us and let us know.
I will. Thank you so much, Jay.
All right. So remember, everybody, be cool and keep learning.